And good morning, everybody. Welcome to What About Nutrition? I'm Steve Casper, Westplex Broadcasting, and with me is David Gall, the owner and manager of my favorite location here in the Westplex area about nutrition, and that would be O'Fallon Nutrition. This is a special show that does explore the link between nutrition and optimum health, a huge subject today with the aging population, and asks the overlooked question, what about nutrition? Now, this is the perfect show to tune into right now and listen and learn and have a lot of fun, too. We always do. Because every day there's more scientific evidence and research regarding the critical importance of nutrition for the promotion of optimum health. What About Nutrition will focus on dietary supplements, herbs, vitamins, and homeopathic remedies, what they are, what they do, and how to use them. We'll also discuss diet, exercise, and other aspects of living a healthy lifestyle in the 21st century. Your host again, David Gall, sitting beside me. He's owner of O'Fallon Nutrition. You can find him at O'FallonNutrition.com. O'FallonNutrition.com. He's a graduate of Washington University and Huntington College of Health Sciences Comprehensive Nutrition Program. And you'll see where all that knowledge comes from now when you hear him on the show. I'm always amazed. And remember, always consult your healthcare practitioner before beginning any new supplements or other changes to your lifestyle. The purpose of the show is to inform, educate, and entertain, not to diagnose, treat, or prevent any disease. And the disclaimer here at the beginning is so long, we're out of time.
That's the whole show.
That's the whole show. Thanks. No, we have a special guest we've had on the show before. He's in the studio with us again today, and I am so pumped. I'm so excited the more these shows go, and there's more and more people that are mentioning to the radio station they're tuning into these shows, that I'm just so excited to have you on once again, David. Tell us about today's show.
Oh, no problem, Steve. Yeah, we're tremendously excited as well. We're hearing more and more great feedback from folks in the area who've been able to hear the show, and we really pride ourselves at O'Fallon Nutrition at being an educational institution for this area. We feel that there is a lack of availability of information about health, and particularly alternative health, and so we try to fill in that void. And you're right, Steve. Today we have an awesome guest. We've got Phil Hess. Phil Hess has been on the show before, as you mentioned. He's a former pharmaceutical sales rep, and now he's crossed over to our side and works in the natural health field. And today we're going to discuss osteoporosis with Phil, and we're going to get into questions like, which form of calcium is the best, and do we need other cofactors with calcium, or is calcium alone sufficient? All sorts of other really cool aspects of osteoporosis for us to talk about. So, I'm going to roll right into it. So, Phil, welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you for having me, Dave. Appreciate being here.
Awesome. So, Phil, we're going to talk about, I guess, the basics of osteoporosis to begin. And you and I were talking this morning about a number of really fascinating statistics. And wasn't it something like 1 in 5 women? Was that the statistic, is osteoporotic?
Yes, 1 in 5 women over the age of 50
okay.
Will have either osteoporosis or osteopenia. Of that, roughly half of those women over the age of 50 will have fractures of either the hip, spine, or a long bone.
So half of women over the age of 50 at some point, statistically, will have a fracture?
Yes, indeed. That's what the statistics show, Dave.
Wow. And we all know, obviously a lot of the time people recover from those great, but we've also all heard and seen stories in real life of folks who may not have recovered so well from some of those fractures past the age of 50.
In fact, you're right. The mortality rate is really, really high, anywhere from 10 to 20% after a bone fracture, because you have to remember, you're in the hospital and you're going to be subjected to whatever the bugs, whatever infection you may get while you're there. So
if possible, we want to avoid them.
Absolutely, and if you do survive the fracture, your life is never going to be the same. The quality,
sure.
Your mobility is not going to be the same as it was. So it's really important to really look at osteoporosis as a disease that you really have to get on top of.
Sure. Yeah, it's true. My own grandmother, who unfortunately passed away this year in February, although at the age of 91, which we're really proud of. But she did fracture her hip, like many folks do, a number of years ago. And at the very least, Phil, I watched it negatively impact her quality of life. In the time frame of 1 month, she went from being able to walk around the mall with me to probably never walking around the mall again, despite living another 10 years or so after that hip fracture. So this is an important issue in people's lives. And we had talked about the calcium paradox. You and I were discussing this morning. This idea that too little calcium can lead to brittle bone. However, on the other hand, too much calcium can lead to weird issues like increased cardiovascular risk and problems such as that. And you were bringing up some studies from the British Medical Journal from 2008 and 2010.
Yes, Dave. In 2008, in a prospective randomized trial of over 1,400 patients, what they actually found were women taking calcium citrate in the form that's called Citracal from Texas, the manufacturers in Texas. They found that there was twice the increase in the risk of heart attacks in that study. And what was surprising was that wasn't what the expected find at all. What they expected to find was actually a decrease in the risk of heart attacks because calcium has been shown to, bring the ratios of cholesterol HDL to LDL in sync. And that was thought. The actual thought was the study was going to prove that calcium actually decreased the risk of heart attack, when in fact it actually increased the risk of heart attack.
So they did a study and they were trying to show a decrease in the risk of heart attack as a result of consuming Citracal or calcium citrate. And they actually got a result that was the opposite of what they expected to get.
Totally unexpected. And then in a 2010 study, a meta-analysis with a larger patient population, it confirmed the findings of the 2008 study, where there was a significant increase in your risk for heart attack from taking calcium citrate.
Wow. So there's actual data on this. So this is this big question. And of course, we're always hearing from physicians and from television commercials and things like that calcium citrate is the be-all, end-all form of calcium and the superior form. But there is a lot of research and discussion going on in the world of nutrition regarding that. And it seems to be indicating that while calcium citrate is one of the better forms, we could say, versus certain others such as carbonate, there's forms of calcium that are performing even better in research. Is that true?
That's very true. And as it turns out, that while calcium citrate has a bioavailability of say roughly 20%, and even a good yogurt will have a 30% bioavailability, calcium from Red Sea algae, or Lithothymia calcareus, actually has an 80% bioavailability. So not all calciums are the same in terms of their bioavailability. Furthermore, you have to think of other cofactors that are involved in the production of bone. We know how important vitamin D3 is.
Sure.
But there's another poorly understood vitamin known as vitamin K2 that plays a significant role in the body's ability to make bone.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I wanted to comment on this bioavailability point. And so folks, what this means is that when he refers to the bioavailability of calcium citrate being approximately 30%, what that means is that you absorb approximately 30% of the calcium citrate you consume. You absorb approximately, 25% from yogurt?
No, I think it was about 20% from calcium citrate.
That's right.
30% from.
I had a feeling I got those numbers wrong, Phil, so I needed to bounce those off of you. But still, so we have about 30% absorption from yogurt, 20-something% from calcium citrate. And on the other hand, you have this really interesting plant source of calcium. And this is playing off of the well-known nutritional concept that calcium from plants and things like green vegetables and other vegetables is better absorbed than calcium from dairy in general.
Yes, Dave. And one of the reasons why, let's go back to those earlier studies where they looked at calcium citrate and we saw an increase in cardiovascular disease risk. One of the reasons for that is calcium citrate, while it is better than calcium carbonate in terms of its bioavailability, it's only 20% bioavailable. So where is the remainder of that calcium going?
Oh, good question.
It winds up depositing can go in your kidneys and cause kidney stones. It can go into, and it most often goes into your blood vessels, where it causes hardening of your arteries.
Sure, everybody's familiar with the phrase calcified arteries.
Yes, hardening of the arteries. It certainly puts you at risk for a heart attack and stroke. And I like to think of healthy arteries one way, and I kind of draw this picture. When you have a garden hose, a cheap plastic garden hose it's hard, it doesn't bend, and you're bringing around a curve in your garage or something, it cracks.
Sure.
But if you had a good high quality rubber hose, and you'd bring it around that same bend, it bends easily and it won't crack. Well, that's
Sure.
the same thing with arteries. When you get arteries brittle and hard, they're not as distensible and they don't adjust well to the changes in pressure. And that's when you have your risk for stroke, when your arteries harden. And in the studies there, one of the theories is that the calcium, because it's poorly absorbed, or the bioavailability is not that good, it led to hardening of the arteries.
Wow. So obviously it's really important. Not only do we have to consume some calcium, but we have to be aware of how the body uses it and where it's going in the body, how it's absorbed. And there are important cofactors to calcium, such as vitamin D and others that are nearly as important, such as vitamin K2, for example, and then a whole host of other trace minerals that are critical as well. So I guess when we get back in the part 2, we have about a minute to go on part 1 here, we're going to discuss some of those cofactors and their importance. We're really going to take a close look at vitamin K, and specifically vitamin K2, and inform everybody of its role in calcium absorption and utilization. And I don't know about you, Steve, but I'm pretty excited to learn more about this.
Absolutely. And folks, you're listening to What About Nutrition? Weekly show on this radio station, and David Gall, owner of O'Fallon Nutrition here locally. You can always find him on the web at o'fallonnutrition.com, o'fallonnutrition.com, and these shows are archived there as well.
That's right.
We'll be back with Phil, our guest, and everybody else right after this.